Hello, and welcome back to Of the People. I'm Robert Chernin,
And I'm Ericka Redic.
and thank you so much for staying with us for our last and final segment for today. And Ericka, I know we were sort of all over the artificial intelligence thing because Lord knows there's no human intelligence, but I do want to talk about something serious in our last segment, and that is the
Okay.
rise of political violence in this country, or violence which is okay for political means. Because it strikes me, right? You had that horrible tragedy in Nashville where
hmm
this transgender LGBTQ whatever person, I think killed 11 people at the Christian school in Nashville. There's so many other stories in the media. uh, And it's just occurred to me that no one's really talking about how all of a sudden it seems okay. And for political violence, it doesn't mean that there has to be deaths involved. A short while ago, there was protests in I think it was the Nashville House of Representatives
hmm
that prevented them from meeting. Just recently in Montana, they had to call out the police as well. There were what are these, teen takeover
Yeah.
mobs that we've talked about before. So there seems to be, people talk about political violence, and it seems to me that as long as the violence is for the right cause, the press and the media think it's okay. And again, nobody seems to comment on it. I have a lot more
Yeah.
to say, but what's your take on all this?
I've been very, very disturbed by this, Robert. And to me, it's a setup. So
What do
many
you mean?
times. Well, think about back to 2020, okay? Back when the BLM riots were happening and people were calling them the 1619 riots, and then those people were like, "Oh, I'm proud it's the 1619 riots." So they're acknowledging even that there is violence happening in the name of left-wing causes. You had Kamala Harris and all these other presidential candidates and officials bailing out rioters, bailing out people who were violent and assaulting people. We had a whole summer of love where people were getting shot in autonomous zones, and all of that was very much one-sided and in the name of political action, political persuasion by people who called themselves trained Marxists, right? So we see or we are demonstrated that political violence is acceptable. But then you have January 6th happen, and now all of a sudden political violence is not okay. Riots are not okay. I mean, riots are never okay. Let's be real. Like, rioting is never okay.
Sure.
Demonstrations and protests, okay. So why is it that we can bail out people in BLM riots, but we place in holding indefinitely without charges January 6th rioters? The difference is clear. If you're on the left, you are allowed to do whatever you want. If you are on the right, we're gonna lock you up and throw away the key.
Okay. So again, I have a slightly different take on it. I mean, I hear what you're saying, and there's certainly a lot of truth to that. But I think my point in all of this is, I took that sort of initial understanding, right, or initial
Mm-hmm.
perception, because really, as Groucho Marx used to say, what are you going to believe? What I tell you or what you see with your own eyes? And what I see with my own eyes is the fact that, and again, I want to differentiate between fatality, killing people, which is obviously
Mm,
bad and wrong, but just the whole concept of political violence or violence to further a political cause, which may not result in
intimidation.
someone dying, whether they're drowning out events because this university or that university is going to host a speaker, and then there's these,
Mm,
violent political protests, they call them, mostly peaceful, which is again like kind of pregnant, but mostly peaceful, and therefore this speaker or that is being shut down because ostensibly it's too dangerous. So violence is being used for
hmm
political purposes. But
That's
here's the
right.
thing. So I went online and I looked up political violence in the United States, and you guys should all do these various searches.
Mm,
99% of what I found online was skewed towards violence of the political right or the
yep.
extreme right. And here's my other question before we get back to this. Why is it that the term extreme right is in the vernacular, but I've never heard anyone talk about the extreme left? As a matter of
Great
fact, if you
question.
look up extreme right, you know what you're going to find, right? Because you know who's running the search engines. If you
Yeah.
look up extreme left, you're still going to get articles on the extreme right. And the only thing they're going to tell you about the extreme left is that, well, it was developed, it's from communism and it developed in the 60s. But, and here's the thing. The violence has now become acceptable, it seems to me, if your cause is right. Because,
Yeah.
and again, this is my theory, I don't think that the political left, let's call them the anti-fascist or the Antifas, right?
Mhm.
Because that's really what you're talking about. And this is not just a national organization, it's international. And that is one of the differences. The extreme right, or the incidents you see, tend to be these small fringe groups. There's not these
Yes.
vast
It's
right-wing,
unorganized. Yeah, it's
vast
like a
right-wing
group of a few
conspiracy Hillary
guys.
Rodham Clinton used to babble about.
Yep.
But the left are these large national, well-organized organizations, right? And I think, here's my theory, and then I want your comment.
Yeah.
I think the reason now that political violence to further political aims is once again acceptable is because the left views us not as the opposition, but as that we're evil. And therefore, since they're fighting evil, the means justify the ends. What do you think?
I totally agree with you. That is why people have said previously, you have to be careful about language and the way that you talk about people. So this idea that anybody who we disagree with, we call them Nazis, and then we say things like punch a Nazi, and it actually is legitimately being encouraged. You've got left-wing or Chuck Schumer, who's the chick from California that is so
Maxine Waters.
She's
Maxine Waters.
If you see people out in public, get in their face. You gotta yell at them. I mean, they're literally being told to do this stuff, and I think that's some of the danger when we're talking about the way that we change words, the way we change definitions, what things mean. We're calling people using terrorist tactics anti-fascist. Okay, so terrorism, the definition of terrorism, you guys, the noun, the unlawful use of violence and intimidation, especially against civilians, in the pursuit of political aims. Okay, so they're using tactics of terrorists
and fascists. So the anti-fascists are the fascists.
Are actually fascists.
Right. No, I agree. So let me read something to you, and I want you to tell me where this came from. So
Okay.
this is a tell me where this came from kind of thing.
All right.
So, and I quote, right-wing groups have been a problem throughout much of our nation's history. Right-wing groups often believe in white supremacy, extremes of Christianity and patriotism. Extreme right-wing groups consist entirely of white Christians and are of often blue-collar and poorly educated. And last comment, right-wing groups have greater potential for mounting a significant effort because they espouse traditional American values. Now, Ericka, where is this from?
Oh my God.
I'll give you 3 guesses.
The New York Times.
No.
The State Department.
Wrong answer. But you're getting warmer. You're getting warmer. Come on.
The Biden administration?
So this is from the United States Department of Justice, the Office of Justice Programs. And by the way, ladies and gentlemen, I just downloaded it today. And if you want to know how...
Wait.
God is my witness. I downloaded this today. This is under the heading of a comparative analysis of violent left and right wing extremist groups in the United States. But here's the real catch. You want to know how long this has been going on? This document, which is still up on the government website, right? That's your document, still up on the government website, was published in 1986.
What?
It's not something to laugh at, but I mean, if you want to know what they're doing to you, that's what they're doing to you.
So they literally said that if you have traditional American values,
yeah.
it means you're a right-wing extremist.
I think right-wing groups have greater potential for mounting significant efforts because they espouse traditional American values. Ladies and gentlemen, this is your federal government. This is your federal government. I mean,
What's so funny about that?
It's not funny, but it is funny.
It's so like, okay, so the thing, this is what's so funny. Okay.
Right.
So America, what makes the United States different, right, is that we aren't founded by a race or a culture or an ethnicity.
Nope.
or
Nope.
or demographically, whatever. Like, America is founded on ideas and principles.
America was founded on a common set of values and a common set of beliefs. We hold these truths to be self-evident, right? These are the things we all believe. That's what that is.
And that's supposed to be what ties us all together, no matter where we come from, right? And so if traditional American values,
that ship has sailed. That ship has sailed.
Lord help us. If having traditional American values is what makes you a terrorist, according to the DOJ, then we're in deep trouble, because then what are we a country for?
Well, as important is, we're going back. That document is 37 years old. It's still front and center on the website of the federal government. And you wonder, so it tells you, I'm trying to think, so how did that document get published? So in 1986, that would have been during the Reagan years.
That's the Reagan administration.
Right? So you're like, you want to talk about the swamp or the deep state, these unaccountable, unelected officials that are putting out policy, even during, the great orator, right? Ronald Reagan, who, if anyone embodies American exceptionalism, it was him. But, the thing that, comes to mind is how it plays out in everyday life. So, the whole saga that's going on in Florida now with Governor DeSantis and the new college, right? That's in, I think it's Sarasota, as I recall. So, obviously it was the single greatest failing college in Florida. The governor comes in, replaces the board, and then you have all these teachers who were calling them fascism. And one of the guys, I guess he had been there, I think it was 3 months or 3 years. I don't remember. I think it was 3 months, but whatever. Basically said, if I was more patriotic, I would burn the college down because now the fascists are taking over. And we come through a time where, Congressman Steve Scalise gets shot playing baseball, the Democrat-Republican baseball games by a Bernie Sanders reporter. Black Lives Matter have these violent protests. Retired police officer in St. Louis, David Dorn, gets shot by these.
Rand Paul's been attacked twice.
Rand Paul's been attacked twice. Yet when you go on the internet and you search up political violence, all you're going to see is right-wing extremism. And I just kind of go, again, is it me? I mean, and then we're not even talking about all the violence against sort of religious institutions, because there is a war, as we have, I think, talked about and documented.
Oh, yeah.
The shooting at the synagogue in Pittsburgh a couple years prior, the shooting in the synagogue in California, the obviously the shooting in Nashville just recently at the Christian school by this person who, by the way, I have a bet for you. The FBI is holding the dossier and notebook and computers of the shooter, Audrey Hale? I think it's Audrey Hale, right? And there is now plenty of information out there that it is so devastating that the FBI will likely never release it, right? And again, under transparency, why can't we see it? What possible harm could it do? I mean, what they're telling you is, well, it's a blueprint for others. My response would be, kiss my what? Because it's once again, the government, not to bleed over into censorship, is now saying you can't see this because it's so bad. Yet tell that to the 11 families whose children died because some mentally deranged person, and we can get into the whole LBGTQ thing later, but this person was clearly deranged, kills 11 people at a Christian school, but we can't see the
Yeah.
Their notebook? Why?
Well, and that's the
Why
thing,
is that?
Robert. So it's Audrey Hale. When we have the obvious double standard at play here, when we can have all of the information and manifesto from anybody that they claim to be a right wing shooter, those will be out on full display where you can read it. But for this person, somehow they're being protected and it's somehow uniquely different or worse and we can't read it. And so, the benefit of that, the good thing that I hope comes out of this situation is that the average American really understands this is a double standard. If you can see the manifesto from a supposed white supremacist, then you should be able to see the manifesto from a supposed transgender person. We cannot have two sets of standards. Well, excuse me. The way you
Ericka,
end up excusing political, the way you end up excusing exactly political violence is you have double standards that are imposed in public. And the more they expose themselves for who they are, the more Americans are waking up and realizing that it's not just right wingers that the federal government sees as the enemy. It's you, the average American. It's not just parents. It's not just school boards. It's you. They think are the enemy. They think you're too stupid to make your own decisions and think for yourself. And they need to manipulate. Wait, did I say manipulate? They just really need to assist you because I just think that you have so much going on in your life and you really need me to help you understand real life. And, parenting is so hard. I don't know why you feel like you need to do that yourself. Just give the rights over to us, the government, to take care of your children. It'll be fine. Nothing could possibly go wrong.
I believe the expression is over my dead body, but you get the idea. It's still, first of all, there are two sets of standards, and anyone who doesn't realize that, we go back to that Groucho Marx, comment, but it only changes, and here I go preaching again. It only changes when America wants it to change, because I think the government is scared of flyover country, of Main Street America. But to me, the issue is, I'm not even arguing about double standards because I think that's so obvious as to not be worthy of comment, right? I think the issue really comes down to the fact that, again, with that veneer, this sort of kinder, gentler old man veneer of Joe Biden and Chuck Schumer and Nancy Pelosi, who's not an old man, but she's old, and has been there forever, and Steny Hoyer and the Democratic leadership that are these old, other than Clyburn, white, right, people who have this veneer of reasonableness, all the while underneath it or behind the scenes, which is the argument I used to make to my friends. When people are saying, well, Biden's going to be a moderate, I'm saying, Biden's not going to run anything. I said, the progressive or extreme wing of the Democratic Party is what's going to drive the agenda, which is clearly what's going on, right? So political violence, here's the last point I want to make, is people need to understand that political violence on the left comes from larger organizations, better organized, and they're international generally, and they are organized.
Well-funded.
And they're well-funded. The extreme right, and look, there are elements on that side, very few by comparison to the numbers. I mean, you don't see the Proud Boys, and I'm not even saying they're an extreme organization, but they're labeled as such.
Right.
I make no such claim, but you never see any extreme organization or, God forbid, a white Christian nationalist group, right? Because they're going to trump out David Duke or this one or that one. But you don't see them shutting down debates. You don't see them protesting. Occasionally, you'll see the two sides show up at a common rally where they're opposing each other. But somebody needs to show me, forget about the last time, show me one time you've seen an event shut down for protest and the fear of political and violence on the right of center. More importantly, catalog for me the acts of political violence, because again, we tend to blur the lines. Are we talking about when people are killed? No, I'm talking about using violence to to drive an agenda, using violence to bring about political change, using violence to shut down free speech and debate. That's what I'm talking about. And when you search it on the internet, and by the way, folks, this is your federal government that we just talked about. This is on their website. And for those of you who can't see this because we're on radio, I keep forgetting we're on radio, it's called the Comparative Analysis of Violent Left and Right-Wing Extremist Groups in the United States, published in 1986.
Gross.
Where's the outrage?
Right here, ladies and gentlemen. Right here. I'm outraged.
You're easy to get outraged. It's easy to push your buttons. It's why I love you as my partner on this show, because I get it. So, okay.
That's why they call me generally irritable.
And that's why they call me always irreverent. Ladies and gentlemen, before we go, I'd love to hear your comments, the good, the bad, the ugly. You can always email me at robertc@acekfund.org. That's robertc@acekfund.org. Let us know what you think.